all know, it's all about this book. It reads The Political Economy of Energy and Growth. It's edited by Sri Najib Jung, Honorable Lieutenant Governor of Delhi. This is published by Oxford, and it's contributed by luminaries from the field of energy. May I request Mr. Firodia to open this session with his opening remarks. Thank you, sir.
We are going to discuss on this book, The Political Economy of Energy and Growth. All of us know that growth is related to energy. Without energy, growth cannot take place. With energy comes carbon emission. So there is a debate that should energy be curtailed, or that means that growth also would be curtailed. But there are ways of ensuring that you continue your growth, but in a smart way. Some countries like Germany have done excellent job. They have brought down the percentage of energy usage compared to their GDP. You grow, doesn't matter, you grow, improve your standard of living, but reduce your energy intensity. So how to use energy, how to ensure that energy supply is guaranteed, whether to use oil, or whether to use coal, whether to use gas, whether to use nuclear energy, whether to use solar energy, those are the issues before us. But future of India definitely lies in solar and nuclear, although we cannot overlook the importance of gas, present importance of coal or hydroelectric power. However, question of environment, question of likely earthquake and other issues also arise. There is now shale gas, which is becoming a very important source of energy for America. And since they are becoming kind of self-sufficient in shale gas, they are losing their interest in Middle East. So in Middle East, if we have to continue to get oil from Middle East or gas, then we have to build our relations with Iran, with Iraq, with Saudi Arabia, and using these relations we have to ensure our energy security. So with these opening remarks, I would like our panelists to tell us about this book, this book is really a tribute to the genius of Dr. Kelkar. When Dr. Kelkar was Finance Commission Chief, he has made great allocation for greening of India. So I would like him to explain to us how in his tenure he has helped greening of India and generation of green energy.
About the book and about Dr. Kelkar, let me start out first, before getting into the book, to do a little bit of a statement of the problem. And I put it down to a single number, $3.6 trillion. This number doesn't appear in the book, but it's an extrapolation of everything that's stated in the book. And this number is what India will end up paying for importing energy sources over the next 15 years. That's $3.6 trillion. Where we stand today is very clear, and what we hear from the industry with regard to energy security. The first and the foremost is a stable governance mechanism. The second, and which is very much discussed recently and which is a core of what I think Dr. Kelkar has proposed always, is how do we make this sector more market facing. Related to the market facing is also, we have to be cognizant, and this has been pointed out time and time again in the book, we have to be cognizant of the reality of India. We must be able to make an offer to the investors of human resources and capital that is commensurate with their perception of risk. We need to create a fiscal regime and a regulatory environment that is commensurate with the perception of risk and reward. The fourth, especially related to the oil and gas sector, is the pertinence and importance that technology and innovation is progressively playing in this area. And we have been woefully short in actually making a leapfrog into actually being where the world is today. And it has got to do with two parts. One is the ability to attract capital, that is international capital. And second, also, we have been, by our own undoing or doing, we have made sure that innovation and R&D in this field has gotten stunted. And so we really need policies that give a big fillip to this area of innovation and R&D. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul. May we request Mr. Vinod Tahiliani to kindly provide his remarks. Thank you.
The book covers a very wide range of topics, and I think it's an extremely well-researched compendium. And it's very, very relevant, as Rahul said, in the current context. You know, if you look at the oil price in 2013, it was one of the years in which the volatility in oil price was at its minimum. So we said, why is this happening? And our group chief economist called it the period of eerie calm. Of the level of, growing to up to 3 million barrels per day. Just to put it in context, 3 million barrels per day is BP's, production level. 3 million barrels per day is also greater than the spare capacity that Saudi Arabia holds. So that's the level of supply disruption we have seen. So why didn't prices jump up? We then look at, what are the shares of the various fuels? As the book highlights, oil was the dominant fuel in 2013. What does that mean in terms of, and Chairman Mr. Firodia alluded to the fact that what does that mean in terms of carbon emissions? Can the globe actually deal with that amount of carbon emissions? But by 2035, gas catches up, and that's the good news part of it, with a view to, have more energy security and a view to actually manage the carbon emissions. Renewables will continue to play a role and will continue to grow at the fastest rates compared to all the other fuels. But renewables will continue to have a relatively smaller share in the world economy. And it will take time for, as Chairman said, for, solar and, thorium and these kind of renewable sources to become, the dominant forces in the world. So that's the fact that gas, is growing, and that's good news from a carbon emissions point of view. But what does it all mean for India? And Rahul alluded to the challenge that we have in terms of our import dependency. Now, India has a twin challenge. India has a high fiscal deficit and a high current account deficit on account predominantly because of the high level of import dependency in energy. Thank you.
We would request Mr. Kapadia, who wrote this chapter in the book. The chapter was titled Role of Natural Gas in India's Energy Basket in the Early 21st Century. So, Mr. Kapadia, thank you.
I'm very thankful to the Pune Institute for inviting me here. So, as far as energy availability is concerned, I think Chairman has said very well that when it has to lead the growth, it cannot follow the growth. It has to lead the growth, and there is no other alternative but for energy to lead the growth. Otherwise, we suffer from what we are suffering today, highs and lows. Sometimes we have energy availability, sometimes we have lows, and so on and so forth. Now, as far as oil and gas is concerned, I really believe that it is a transit, or all fossil fuels are a transit fuels, which really means that we really need to see how or what we can do for next 20 or 30 years for this oil and gas as the source of energy security. Now, we talked about political economies and so on and so forth, but in my view, simplistic, because I can't really think very deeply. Simplistically putting, it's a competition between buyers and the sellers. So now come back to what is our resource, what is our economic resource, what is our strength, what is our resource. It's only coal, right, as far as the fossil fuels are concerned. Coal is a resource. Now coal in today's technological world, you can convert coal to oil, coal to gas, and use it a complete source of energy actually. Once again, what is our strategy, what should our strategy be based on? As I said, this is a transit fuel for next 20 or 30 years. And within this next 20 or 30 years, we need to try and see how much more fossil fuel, how much more, not how much more renewable and how much more nuclear we can bring into the energy basket. I think that has to be our strength. All the same, let's talk about natural gas being the most important transit fuel for the next 20 to 30 years. And I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. With the permission of the chair, may I now request Mr. Shantanu Dikshit.
It's a great privilege for me to be on the dais and to speak along with these dignitaries. But I will, in the interest of time, just share 2 or 3 points with you. Now, coming to the issue of energy security and lot of things that have been said in the book, I just want to add 3 more aspects that we need to keep in mind when we are looking at energy security, or rather the future of energy sector in the country. The first point I would like to make is we really cannot have any short circuit perspective about the governance of the sector. However, maybe maybe our policies, they need to go through a range of governance processes, and unless we have good handle in terms of improving transparency and accountability across this chain of decision making, many of these even appropriate policies will not yield a desired result. The second question I would like to raise is about the energy security. We are talking about energy security largely in the context of how do we secure supply of our energy supplies, energy resources. But I think we also need to ask the question that why we need this energy security. For whom energy security? We have 300 million people who are completely away from any form of modern energy resources. So we also need to have special emphasis, special thinking in terms of how can we provide energy security to these set of people, not just for industries and commercial sectors. That our priority has to be having specific programs and measures to provide energy security for these vulnerable sections. And the third issue, again, I think we need to really work hard on is the future in terms of energy sector is definitely going to be very large contribution by renewables, whether it is wind or whether it is solar. And those are very labor intensive technologies. So that is the area where again we need to give more focus. So with these 3 thoughts, I will stop here. And as all of us are also eager to hear Dr. Kelkar. Thank you very much.
Let me talk about the title of the book, is Political Economy of Energy and Growth. You know, my memory, and probably all of us here probably have same memory, as a teenager, my only memory of my teenager age was I was always hungry. And this hunger for energy is because one was growing. And this is what India is today have. India is like a teenager, is growing, is hungry for energy. So, and without that energy, I'm afraid we will not be able to sustain our growth. So energy and growth are intertwined. And here the political economy, or the politics and economics of oil or gas is very unique in my view than many other industry, because in my view, 3 structural factors. One is that unlike many other commodities, oil is very, what economists we call, very inelastic in demand. And that creates the politics of it. So one is very, very inelastic demand creates tensions and politics of it. Second interesting characteristic of oil and gas is that while it's inelastic in prices, it's very elastic in income. That means as income goes up, as prosperity goes, the demand for oil and gas goes up dramatically because the demand for mobility. So again, there's a politics comes in here. And the third factor of politics and economics, which was Dilip alluded to, that unfortunately globally the world is not endowed in equal measure the availability of oil and gas. I mentioned about how the oil and gas affects the politics by its availability. But if you think about it, last 100 years, almost every revolution and counter-revolution is intimately linked with oil. Or take the example of, recent example of Wahhabi counter-revolution. Today the world is beset with the challenges of Islamic terrorism financed by Wahhabis is because of oil. So oil is politics and oil is intimately correlated. I'll make last remarks on politics of uh, the where comes on oil industry, which is now I come to the politics and economics of hydrocarbon reforms. Here the politics comes into it because I mentioned the nature of this industry is such that you have to both manage both economics and also politics. And I'll just give two examples. One was somebody mentioned that when we completely abolished the monopoly of ONGC, what was the politics and economics? Now, what we did, and I don't know here Professor Deshpande realized this or not, the biggest loser in the game was ONGC. Now, how to get ONGC on board? Because ONGC is a very powerful union. ONGC has a union called ASTRO. Now, question is, how do you manage ASTRO? So the way I persuaded them that look, this whole reform is in interest, because one of the very important part of reform was to give international price of oil to ONGC. Till then, ONGC was getting only the administrative price of much lower than what international price was. Only $7. So when I say that you can get possibly that time $28 was the price, 4 times increased price, they came on board. Because they saw that there is then in the sanctum for them also, because they can grow. Because that gave the possibility of ONGC to grow and invest, because as I said, the most talented pool of Indian engineers and geologists are on ONGC, and it was also making available this goods and services. So the politics and economics of oil industry is very interesting, unique, and it intertwines international politics, domestic politics. It's extremely explosive politics, because they can stop the country. So the reforms or changes occur in oil and gas industry where politics and economics are continuously colliding with each other. No other industry perhaps has similar kind of things, both international politics and domestic politics. So the politics is in the heart of the economics of hydrocarbon sector. So these are really my remarks. I know people are hungry, and other issues we can discuss some other time.